some things that you can do. So one of the things that these authors did, in this particular paper was, and this was just published in 2022, is they kind of accumulated all the different types of things that you could do, whether it was through your diet or through different types of medications. They were trying to summarize how you could offset the different toxicities that came from different heavy metals. And their concern was that because there's a way that in medicine, heavy metals are actually, oftentimes they're treated through something called IV chelation. Some people want to pronounce it chelation because it's CH, but the CH is actually pronounced K, like chelation. And so IV chelation with substances like DMSA and DMSO are very common choices medically to pull metals out of you. So these are IV treatments. They will run these chemicals through your body, and these chemicals work as binding agents. They will bind onto toxic metals and then pull them out of you. And so doing that, though, these two compounds are not specific for bad guys. They will pull not just lead and arsenic and mercury and cadmium and thallium, but they will also pull calcium and magnesium and zinc. And so, you have to be aware that when you do IV chelation, you should also, your doctor that you're working with should have a plan where he is also remineralizing you, making sure he's adding minerals back to you to prevent mineral deficiency. Because that's one of the risks with doing IV chelation, is that you cause mineral deficits in the process of pulling out the bad stuff. You're also pulling out the good stuff. And so these scientists got together and said, well, how could we make nutritional recommendations or lifestyle recommendations to mitigate some of the potential poisonous effects of heavy metals? And so they came up with certain food-based items that have known protective effects. And so I would say this is more along the lines of, if you have the damage from heavy metals, these are natural things you can do with your diet or lifestyle that would allow you to negate some of the toxic effects. But again, at the end of the day, I agree that I think that chelation, you got to get the metal out of you. If you never get the metal out of you, you're stuck over here just using a bunch of supplements or food-based items to try to offset the damage. But remember, metals will bioaccumulate and stay lodged in your tissues, and you really, if you're high, you want to get them out of you. And although IV chelation is not the only option for chelation, there's nutritional chelation that can also be done that will help pull and bind a lot of those toxic metals and support your detoxification as well. But let's just talk about some of the things that can be done. I'll point a few of these out without reading the entire list to you, but like for the nephrotoxicity, so for the kidney, their recommendation, there are a few things on this list that I think are worth pointing out. One of them being alpha lipoic acid, another one being silymarin, which comes from milk thistle. So these are just things that you can do to support your body's healing and repair in terms of kidney damage caused by metals. They also mention quercetin, curcumin, right, and royal jelly as options. I like quercetin as an antioxidant bioflavonoid. It's one of my favorite to use because it's so potent and so powerful. And you can see for the carcinogenic effects, they're recommending some similar things here: curcumin and sulforaphane, which is an extract from cruciferous, like broccoli. Melatonin, which we get from sunshine. Best place to get melatonin for free is sunshine, and getting plenty of it. And then again, quercetin, again there. And then down here you can see for the hepato or liver toxicity, curcumin, okay, and berberine and carnosine, all options here. For heart toxicity, vitamin C, sulforaphane and curcumin. And for skin toxicity, epigallocatechin 3-gallate, which is generally, this is green tea, okay, found in green tea. So if you're a green tea drinker and you like your green tea, that's a way to get epigallocatechin. You can get it from apples. The skin in the apples contain that same substance as well. And then immunological toxicity, inositol, which is a B vitamin compound, and then curcumin. Again, you see curcumin on a lot of these. And then for reproductive toxicity, ellagic acid, which is found in things like pomegranates and strawberries and some nuts. And then up here for genotoxicity, you can see again epigallocatechin, and then curcumin and silymarin, and then for the neurotoxicity, again, curcumin. So you see, if you're trying to hit all the right notes with all these things, I think a really good walkaway would be turmeric, right? Curcumin, as a potential to give you some benefit of protection and support in terms of heavy metal toxicity. But I'm more of a fan of, what do you do in the long haul? What do you need to do long term? You got to get the metal out of you. You just can't let it stay in you. And getting it out of you is how do we detox, right? What can you do? Well, one of the things that you can do is work with a good functional healthcare provider and do a process of chelation. And I recommend if you're going to do that, you work with somebody who knows what they're doing and can really help you. But what you can do is you can make better decisions that help support detoxification pathways. So how do you do it? How do you make this how do you help yourself, protect yourself from heavy metals and help to get heavy metal out of you naturally? How do you support your body's ability to do that? Well, let's talk about that. Because there's different primary pathways for detoxification. And number one is poop, right? We have bowel movements, so we poop it out. And there's a process whereby our liver helps us to excrete toxins and poisons into the GI tract, and we can poop those out. So, the enemy of detoxification is the opposite of pooping regularly, which is constipation. So if you are constipated, this is, you're blocking one of your primary channels of detoxification. And so focus on making sure that you're doing everything to have healthy, regular bowel movements. Now, I've done an entire show on constipation that you can go through and you can watch. You just type that in on my channel and you'll pull that up if you want to dive deeper into that. Number two is sweating. We get rid of a lot of toxins through the skin itself. That's why a lot of the symptoms of heavy metal toxicity as they're coming out through the sweat can be inflammation of the skin. So sweating on a regular basis, well, you can do that with exercise. Now, some people, often talk about saunas, and, one of my favorite types of sauna is infrared, because it goes deep, that light penetrance goes deep into the skin and can really pull toxins out and support that. So infrared sauna being a good way to sweat, exercise, in my opinion, being one of the freest ways and cheapest ways to sweat. Sunshine. Going out on a hot day and being exposed to sun, sunshine is one of the freest detoxification agents that you could expose yourself to on a regular basis. Now, sunshine, the distinction being get good adequate sun without burning. Don't go out so long enough to burn. And then number three is we pee it out. So urination is one way that we get it out. And this is where, like, eating the right foods that act as, there are a number of different natural things that act as binding agents to heavy metals. And so, having these as a regular course of your diet, one of them is foods rich in alpha lipoic acid. And there are a number of foods that contain lipoic acid, but also in addition is foods that are rich in NAC, N-acetylcysteine. These are sulfur-containing foods, so cruciferous vegetables would be an example there. Eggs would be an example there. But consuming foods that are high in nutrients that we know have binding agent properties or detoxification properties to help your liver, basically metabolize these things into water-soluble agents that can be excreted out of the urine. And then the fourth way is through breathing. A lot of people forget about breath work and breathing as being important for health, but your lungs have just a very, very powerful antioxidant system that is designed not only to prevent chemicals that we breathe in from damaging them, but also from allowing us to expel chemicals as they're being metabolized through in our bloodstream and then find their way back to the lungs. So deep breathing can be a very, very valuable tool in a detoxification protocol. So don't forget to breathe. So these things you can do, pretty much all these things here are free for the most part because they're just choices that you get to make every day. Now beyond that, if you're working with a good functional practitioner, the key message I can give you is right here. Test, don't guess. I get a lot of times where people will say, yeah, my doctor wanted to do chelation, and they never even did a test to see if they needed to do chelation. Remember that testing gives you the knowledge and the confidence to know you're doing the right thing. And so what kind of testing is best for heavy metals? In my opinion, and there are different opinions out there, I'm going to share mine with you. The best way to test for toxic, chronic bioaccumulation of heavy metals is this right here. It's called a pre-post provocation test. And this is where it's a urine test. And so you give a urine sample, that's pre. So the first thing you do is collect urine, and then you take chelating agents. Again, chelation. Chelating agents. One really good one that's over the counter that many people take is something called EDTA, which is a natural chelating agent. Mix that with some NAC and some alpha lipoic acid and some garlic, and you've got a heck of a chelating oral pill that would suffice for the second part of this test, which is the post, which is where you take a dose of these things and then you collect urine for several hours, and then you're measuring to see what kind of heavy metals are coming out. This again, pre and post provocation. The pills that contain these types of substances are the provoking agents, or what are called provoking agents. And so if you're working with a healthcare provider, they'll know what that means, and they'll know and probably will have an idea of what they would want to use to test you. So test, don't guess. Now, serum testing, a lot of people bring this to me and they say, yeah, my doctor tested me for mercury, or my doctor tested me for lead, and they bring back a serum test. And serum tests are really only accurate if you've had an acute poisoning. They're not real super accurate because your body will take the metals that you're slowly exposed to and it stores it into your tissues to get it out of the circulation. It doesn't want it in the circulation because metals are reactive and toxic. So your body will store it in tissue to get it out of the circulation, from preventing it from creating a reaction. And so serum testing is only accurate when you have an acute poisoned exposure. So if you suspect somebody's trying to kill you, you've ever watched these criminal shows on TV late at night where the husband's maybe trying to kill the wife with arsenic or something like that, then maybe serum testing might be a kind of a more accurate way for you to get that answer. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to understand about bioaccumulation, pre and post urine provocation testing is hands down one of the best ways to investigate for heavy metal toxicity, in my experience and in my opinion. So test, don't guess, and then work with that expert. Now, if you're just looking for some natural detoxification support, one of the things I created is a formula called Ultra Metal Detox. And so what this does is it just helps with liver detoxification. It helps your liver, supports your liver in doing that. It helps with kidney function, and it also contains, instead of just pulling, remember I said that any kind of chelating agent doesn't select for good or bad metals, it just pulls metal. But this formula has something in it called shilajit, which is a very, very mineral-dense substance designed to help support remineralization of the body if you're doing any type of chelation. Now, if you're doing something like this, it's more for support. You just want to be cautious. You don't want to just take an overabundance of it indefinitely and not ever investigate deeper. But if you are just trying to take a supplement that supports your ability to detox metals, it's something you can take 1 to 2 capsules of a day, and it's just part of your support program. But at the end of the day, it's always best to test, not to guess. If you suspect you've got a heavy metal issue, you need to probably get in and work with a good functional doc or somebody well versed in this stuff to get the help that you need, so that you're not just wondering or trying things that may not be helpful for you in the long run.